Hi, I'm Danielle Gagne from Commercial UAV News, and today I am joined by members of Skydio. Can you introduce yourselves?
Hey, good morning. Thank you for having us here. My name is Alden Jones. I'm the VP of Customer Success at Skydio.
Hi, Danielle. Yeah, thank you for having us. My name's Hayk. I lead the Autonomy team, and I've been at Skydio for about 6.5 years.
Fantastic. It's great to have you here. So you just had one of your biggest product announcements ever with the release of Skydio 3D Scan. Can you please explain what 3D Scan is and how it is different from other solutions in the market today?
Yeah, of course. So we're incredibly excited about 3D Scan from both a product perspective and a technology perspective. Personally, I think it's probably the most exciting thing I've ever worked on. So I'm very hyped up. 3D Scan is basically software that runs onboard Skydio drones for automating the aerial data capture process. So it's a suite of algorithms that run on top of our kind of core autonomy flight engine that do real-time model building so that the drone can understand any sort of scene and capture the perfect data to create high-quality 3D models. And this is extremely useful across a bunch of industries in inspection and mapping and just generally digitizing the world. So the technology behind this is really core to what we do. And the drone is essentially using a lot of computer vision and deep neural network techniques to understand the scene and build a flight plan tailor-made to the specific structures that you want to scan. And this allows, it makes it much, much easier to create millimeter scale digital twins without being a photogrammetry expert, without being an expert drone pilot. So that's why we think it's super groundbreaking and excited to see it out in the world.
I'd also add from my perspective, Danielle, I think one of the most amazing things about 3D Scan is there's obviously a ton of applications for digitizing the world, as Hayk mentioned, but there's also, frankly, probably quite a few use cases in businesses and organizations that would really benefit from digitizing the world or photogrammetry technology, or pick your phrase, but haven't done it. And part of that is due to the difficulty and expense of training, like Hayk mentioned. Also ease of use and lack of reproducibility because of some things like manual flight, which require a really skilled pilot. And even with that amount of skill, still have a level of error that maybe doesn't meet the risk profile. So in combination with Skydio's autonomy technology, 3D Scan is just a groundbreaking new step. And same thing with waypoint missions, which, as you know, generally rely on GPS. So any sort of mission that requires you to get really close to something or potentially enter a GPS denied environment, like under a bridge or next to EMI or electromagnetic interference, those things can interrupt the mission and therefore make it really challenging for a potential customer or user to leverage 3D Scan or photogrammetry, 3D modeling technology. And 3D Scan changes all of that dramatically by really democratizing the use of capture, which is what Hayk said in our launch video, which I'm going to steal that word because I think it's perfect.
It's funny that you say democratization, because I was thinking that when Hayk was talking about this is really about making the whole drone experience accessible to people who are not born in this industry. They're not going to be in this industry, but they still could benefit from this technology. So what led Skydio's team to really focus their energy for the past 18 months on developing 3D Scan?
Yeah, I can talk about that. So I think, from the very beginning, we've wanted to make drones that, like you mentioned, are super easy to fly and in some ways abstract out the concept of. So you're not controlling a drone on sticks, you're controlling a flying camera, and you've kind of the superpower to fly and build things. And I think the, nominal use case of drones is capturing imagery, but going to 3D is at the core of everything we do for our online autonomy and is also at the core of what most people want out of drones. And so as we saw our drones start to expand, especially in commercial use cases, we like to be very close to our customers and visit them. And last year, probably about 18 months ago, our leadership team took a trip to Japan, where we toured a bunch of kind of different customers that were using our drones, demoed to some others that weren't yet. And it was just a very active market for us. And so we spent a lot of just time on the ground. And we noticed that for cases like bridge inspection, in particular, a company called GIW that was really gracious and hosted us, we saw how they were doing inspections of bridges and other complex structures. And it's already much easier with a Skydio drone because you can fly in a GPS denied environment under this bridge over water in a very challenging scenario. So it's better than the alternatives, but it still takes a huge amount of effort to meticulously capture a data set to create a 3D model, because you have to know in your head, how does photogrammetry work to get all the overlap between all the photos and kind of precisely go in there, and you can be on the sticks for hours, days, and you need multiple people to kind of be managing the process. And a lot of it is just ripe for the tool doing the job better, because a computer can keep track of what you've imaged. And that was kind of the start of, we should really focus on this as a first class thing. It's like, let's make the drone understand these models, track the coverage internally, so that the job of the pilot becomes much, much easier and they can focus on more important things.
Fantastic. And can you talk about some of the features of 3D Scan that you both are most excited about? And Alden, can I have you start?
Yeah, sure, I can start. So I think the thing that I'm most excited about is adaptive mapping. And to just briefly talk about what that is, it's in the launch video, but essentially the user only has to set a volume, which is pretty easy, right? It's a top, it's a bottom, and it's the sides. And one thing that I've spoken to with colleagues in the drone space or coworkers at previous companies for a long time is this idea of, previously with GPS waypoint mission planning, everything was based around keeping your drone away from stuff. So away from the 3D structure you were scanning, away from the telephone pole over there or the tree over there. And so there was a whole lot of work spent and training to make sure that an operator could plan this really complex 3D waypoint mission. And at the end of the day, if you make a mistake and you tell the drone to fly into a tree, it will, because that's what it was programmed to do. Now, Skydio is obviously different with the core autonomy that we've had for a while. But what's great about adaptive mapping is, I like to think of it as almost like a suction cup. So you have this volume, and then you just kind of tell the drone to go explore the scene. And instead of trying to stay away from everything, it's actually trying to get in those nooks and crannies and figure out exactly what that thing looks like. And it builds that real-time model. And then it goes and builds that adaptive capture mission like Hayk was mentioning. So that is so game-changing for a bunch of reasons. First, you don't spend 30 minutes on the site planning a mission. Second, you don't have to do all this training. Third, it increases safety, increases efficiency, a whole bunch of stuff. That's probably my most favorite feature. The second would be real-time AR coverage. So, been in the industry for a while, you've driven somewhere far away. Someday drone pilots will be on every corner, or maybe docs will be on every corner, but someday drone pilots will be on every corner. But we're not quite there yet, right? So a lot of times people drive a really long way to get to a site and then go leverage this great skill that they have. And even with all that practice and training, a lot of times they don't know if they've done a complete job. So one part is the algorithm helping you do a complete job, but the second part is knowing when you leave the job site that everything is good. So you can see that blanketed coverage, you can see your overlap and side lap, and make sure that when you leave the site, you're going to get the 3D model that you want. And then last, I'd say AR Observer, which essentially, if you're working around a 3D structure and you're a good 107 pilot, you should be maintaining visual contact with the drone. And there's a lot of kind of moving around and making sure that you can see stuff. And you should do that, but that's also really hard if you're flying manually, right? That's really challenging. So the drone is flying itself, you're looking at it, but you can also see how the drone is going to go and interact with the scene on your screen, which is really helpful. It gives you a little bit of a preview and helps you keep track of things from a safety perspective, which is fantastic. So I'd say those three things are my favorite features.
Honestly, I'll kind of go with a holistic, I don't know, almost a non-feature, but it's basically just how fun it is and accessible it is to use. So basically, I give demos to candidates all the time who are basically, interested in Skydio. And sometimes I ask, have you ever flown a drone before? Or have you ever played a video game? And I'll just let them take off. And if they can just know how to kind of just generally move around in a vague sense for the drone with some guidance, they can work through this kind of wonderful UI we've made with a bunch of different steps to tell you what to do. And they can do the scan, and then we can just monitor the drone and be talking while it's going. And that's just, it's pretty magical when you see it happening. So I think that's just when you're out there doing it, it's such a world of difference from you being on the sticks trying to think about, oh, oh darn, what did I get? Did I do that part? Am I moving too fast, too slow? It's just it's just a world of difference in my opinion.
Yeah, you really get to manage your flight rather than working on the skills of keeping that flight in the air. So what are some ways you're able to ensure the data accuracy with this process?
From the standpoint of the technology, we've taken a few approaches. So, because I think the key thing here is we're being vertically integrated here with owning the hardware and the flight algorithms and the 3D scan capture application. So we're able to really think about, how do we guarantee the coverage with knowledge of the whole system and having basically, control of it all. And so for us, Alden was hinting at this earlier, this is what you see in the real-time AR, but as the drone builds a 3D model of the scene, so we have this kind of low poly, low resolution mesh to work with while the drone's flying. And on that mesh is how we generate the flight plan. And we have this metric that we built up that measures kind of how much coverage you have on each face of that mesh. So the drone is trying to paint that mesh with coverage almost, so that you don't. And the metric is basically saying, I need photos from different viewpoints so that you can kind of do triangulation and build 3D models. And you need to not have gaps between your photos, not have disconnected sets. So we kind of have very much a numerical metric for the quality of this. And we calibrate that metric based on how well we see photogrammetry engines reconstructing this. And we also have internal benchmarks where we have, a set of 3D scans, the set of the photos, what our planner did, and what resulted. And so we're just continuously calibrating this from a technology standpoint to ensure data accuracy. And of course, communicating with customers, testing on lots of scenes.
Probably add to that too, there's, for maybe some folks who are watching who are new to the industry, there's two types of accuracy we generally care about in reconstruction. One is absolute and one is relative. And just to do a quick background, if you care about something's relative measurement, let's say you care that something is 3 inches long, like a crack in the foundation, but you don't care if that's on the South Pole or the North Pole, then you care about relative accuracy. If you care about absolute accuracy, you care that actually, no, that crack is on the 101 bridge out here in San Francisco, and it's exactly this GPS location. And so Skydio is intent on building this or has built this amazing collection platform, but with the intent of being agnostic to all of our processing partners and all the existing accuracy tools that are already in the photogrammetry and 3D mapping space. So that includes, RTK base stations, post-processing kinematics, so PPK. There's some pretty nifty companies out there doing ground control points that are GPS enabled. You can have known distance scale constraints. So all those things can still be used in your 3D model to generate the types of accuracy that you're looking for, in addition to the most important thing, which Hayk mentioned, which is that you captured your data right the first time.
Absolutely. It ensures that good data is going into all of that process. What photogrammetry engine is 3D Scan compatible with? I know you mentioned that you kind of developed it to be agnostic. And how long does exporting take?
Yeah, so kind of two-part question. So from a compatibility standpoint, we are agnostic. It works with any photogrammetry engine. And just like all drone manufacturers, will continue to improve and tune the parameters with our partners to make sure that the models just keep getting better. So to mention a few, right, we work closely with Bentley, context capture, drone deploy, reality capture, and all those models are looking great, and we'll continue to make them even better. But we're excited with to work with anybody. In terms of exporting, it's the same thing if you've been in the industry, but to maybe talk about it a little bit for folks who haven't. So essentially today, the standard process is you take your SD card and you plug it into your computer and you upload it, or do something on your physical computer to a big desktop and you have an on-premise software. And that's essentially the same thing that we have today. So if you're pushing stuff up into Drone Deploy's cloud, whatever your internet speed was before, if it's still the same, the export process is the same. And the same thing with processing. You can think of all the same per gigapixel per hour metrics that you have with any of the other photogrammetry engines. And ultimately, we think we'll be able to do some pretty neat things and continue to improve that with our partners. But it's basically a one-to-one.
Fantastic. So Alden, you have a lot of experience developing 3D maps and conducting inspections and surveys with more traditional methods. Can you talk briefly about that experience and how you think 3D scan is changing how we conduct these processes in terms of lowering cost, increasing value, saving time, improving efficiencies, keeping people safe, and enabling scalability?
Yeah, so that might be like a 6-part question. So let's see if I can take those. I might group a few together. So, from a lowering costs and improving efficiency standpoint, I think Hayk has mentioned in much more elegantly than I can how we build that real-time model and essentially go and plan that mission for the user. And so, firstly, I would say efficiencies are gained by not having to sit there and plan a manual mission. As well as just Skydio in general's setup time as a drone is incredibly fast compared to a manual drone. And there's a whole bunch of efficiency in terms of training. So, we have online training for our systems. It's dramatically shorter than some of the training that I've provided for employees in the past at other companies. So there's a lot of efficiency there. And then in terms of the last thing I'll just say is I'm going to go back to the idea of democratizing 3D scans. So generally, I've believed for a long time that if we can reproduce digitally the world around us that we have to go interact with for our jobs, there's a whole lot of things that come with that, right? So there's lack of human error. There's people being able to coalesce and agree to data that's right in front of them, and there's not, people writing stuff down in the field and then coming back or taking a picture from an angle, then somebody wants a different angle, so you don't have to go back and revisit job sites. So there's just generally having a very accurate, high fidelity model of things that you care about in the world allow us to transact on that in different ways much more quickly and efficiently. So that's lowering costs and efficiency. I'd talk about that. From keeping people safe perspective, I would say that, it kind of makes sense just generically that drones are good to take people out of dangerous places. And so you can think about all kinds of things that we in the world go and climb all over or lift ourselves up to or put ourselves in awkward positions, whether they're confined or dangerous or next to, hot or electrified stuff. So drones kind of take you away from that place. And part of what the promise of drones hadn't quite realized yet was that it was really hard to get the shot that you wanted exactly the way you wanted it. You sort of had to compromise by staying 40 or 50 feet away with a big, powerful camera, a big, expensive drone. You're really worried about crashing it. But if the only thing that you're worried about is setting the volume for something and then letting the drone do the rest for you, and it's going to capture every possible angle that you want, it once again just opens up the use cases to all kinds of businesses, maybe ones who thought that their industry wasn't compatible with drones, and now they are. So safety-wise, it's huge. We're just taking people away from risky situations, which we're all really excited about. And then lastly, scalability, which is super near and dear to my heart. I would just say that so much of scalability is really just about repeatability. And so imagine, you have to train a bunch of people, but Skydio offers comprehensive training that they all go to the same place and they take it, and it's going to get updated over time, but it's all backed by the manufacturer and the developer, and that's us. So there you go. Now your people are in a scalable cycle. And then in terms of capturing the data, instead of worrying about, I have a waypoint mission, but each person kind of thinks about the waypoints differently, or I have to create a custom solution to match my specific vertical type of business. Sorry, my dog is talking. Now you have software that can do all of that for you. And that's just really exciting. And it changes the game in a way that I've been waiting for years. So we're really excited.
Skydio isn't really resting on its laurels now that the 3D scan is out. You've already announced Skydio Cloud. Can you talk briefly about what this will be and how it will integrate into the rest of your software platform? You've been known for being vertically integrated, so it'd be really interesting to hear your plans with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely can't stop. There's too much to build. And the vertical integration is, great, because we can solve those in between pieces that are a lot of the friction for people out there. And the more I, go through these workflows and understand what Alden's life is, the more I, can associate with that. And that's kind of a key thing at Skydio's. All of the engineering is really close to understanding the use cases and workflows and customers. So yeah, Skydio Cloud is a huge part of that, and kind of having a fully integrated enterprise stack. So the ability to basically, for example, connect 3D scan to that, right? The cloud is general, but the ability to have the drone automatically upload media to the cloud, so you don't have to swap out SD cards and kind of manage that process, and have them automatically retain kind of the scan information, have that metadata, be able to have that kind of edge model viewer, the same thing in the cloud, and categorize all that is a huge boost to just simplifying life. And what the operator saw in the field, you can now kind of see in the cloud. We also recently announced our X2, our variant of the Skydio X2, which will be a color-only version without the thermal camera, and priced accordingly. And that will be really ideal for close-up inspections with 3D scan, with all of the kind of benefits of the hardware that X2 brings. We're working on a bunch of partnerships and integrations, for example, to expand our Axon partnership, so that if you're a first responder, you can sync up your 3D scan data sets directly to their Axon evidence offering for streamlined evidence collection. And overall, I mean, we're working towards a world where all of the pieces fit together and simplify the experience, make it seamless, and just improve things that are complex, slow, and dangerous today. So as a whole, we kind of call this the arc of autonomy, where the drones move up the stack of just being something that is a tool that you fly around manually and replace you moving around, but to just have fully automated workflows, have connectivity, and push all the way up to delivering on large applications, which we think is kind of the key to really getting these things in the mainstream for all the areas that they're dying to be used for today. But it's hard to scale, and I think everyone of your viewers probably know the commercial drone industry is still very, very early in terms of being something that is just used in all of the applications in every corner of the world that they have potential to benefit. So that's how I think about it.
Exciting. And finally, what are you both looking forward to in the future?
Well, I think this might be a little bit cliche to say, but I'm really excited to get out there with customers and use the product with them and hear how they're using it. And that's sort of twofold. One, there's a lot of hard work that went into this, mostly on Hayk's team, but it's great to see something come to fruition. But two, and maybe more importantly, why I'm on the customer success team, is I actually want to know the things that aren't perfect. Because just like Hayk mentioned, we're not resting on our laurels. We're going to keep making this product better. And so getting out with our customers and understanding what's working and where we can make improvements is actually really exciting to me, because that's where you get to really build a relationship and then go and show, hey, you told us this and now it's fixed, or we couldn't do this and now we can. And with all of that, we intend to sort of stay where we are, which is absolutely first class and leading the pack in autonomy. So that's what I'm most excited about.
Cool. And then, I'm a technology guy, and I'm interested in deep tech. So I'll take that kind of attack. I think for me, 3D scan is a really great example of just moving up a layer in the stack to this kind of autonomous workflow. So in some ways, you're not piloting a drone, you're executing an autonomous workflow. And I think that's a pretty big paradigm shift that has incredible amount of potential. And I think of that as kind of like an inflection point in how these things are done. But I think we'll also kind of look back in, I hope to look back in several years' time and see that this is the moment where like the paradigm changed, but it's still, there's so far to go in terms of being just the full potential that it can be. And so some of the things I mentioned earlier that we're working on, and lots of internal technology investments for the next generation of things kind of across the board that I can't talk about here, but is kind of what gets me up every day and super excited about. So stay tuned for that.
looking forward to your next big announcement. And thank you both for joining me today and talking about Skydio 3D Scan in the future. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Danielle.